happening. Perfect. So hello, everyone. Welcome to Promoting Healthy Aging in an Aging World with beautiful Joy. So I want to hand over to Joy now. Bye, Joy. Hi, Joy.
Good morning, everyone. It's nice to see many of you here. And I'm going to share my screen and then we can start talking about promoting healthy aging in the aging world. A little bit about myself. You can call me Joy. Feel free to do that. I'm a nutritional epidemiologist, which means that I focus on studying diet and nutrition and see how does it play a role, and also how to promote nutrition and diets to manage chronic disease, prevent chronic disease, and also prolong life, and also maintain our well-being. I'm a lecturer at the School of Population Health. I'm also a member at the UNSW Aging Future Institute. Just yesterday, I got promoted to an honorary senior lecturer at the School of Pharmacy at University of Sydney. So it's a really pleasure to talk to everyone about some of my research experience, but also some of my ideas. And I also want to hear your voices and your ideas about healthy aging, particularly in this lens of being a woman. So an acknowledged country. So UNSW is located on the unceded territory of the Gadigal and Ngunnawal peoples. That's in Canberra, who are the traditional owners of the lands where each campus of UNSW is situated. And I live in Cherrybrook, in a suburb of Sydney. And so I also acknowledge the traditional lands of the Darug people. I pay my respects to the elders, past and present and emerging. And if there are any Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people in the audience, I also extend my respect to all of you. So the outline of my talk today. So we're going to look at the global trend of aging and health and well-being. What does well-being mean? I think a lot of us have heard of well-being many times, but there are some kind of very nuanced and comprehensive meaning about it. I recently got to know about the United Nations Decades of Healthy Aging, and we are in that decade now, and that's from 2021 to 2030. And this framework includes 4 pillars. We are going to look at these 4 pillars, and I think a lot of these pillars are very resonated to where we are and how we are going to fight against aging and also promote healthy aging in our daily life and work as well. As mentioned earlier, I am a nutritional epidemiologist, so I'm going to share some of my work when I was doing my PhD and also doing my postdoc in Boston in the United States. I have done a lot of work around diet and nutrition and look at the role of them in osteoporosis prevention, particularly hip fracture prevention. Some people also may experience knee osteoarthritis, which is a very common problem in older people, in men as well as women, but particularly women have more prevalence to develop knee osteoarthritis. So I'm going to talk about some of my research around there using the dietary lens. Another exciting piece is that I recently just published a review looking at different lifestyle factors and health practices around centenarians. The centenarians is a word to refer to people who live to 100 years or above, and there's some of the lessons we can learn from the research I just finished and published recently. And last but not the least, and we're gonna have some interactions to open the floor to everybody who is online at the moment, and I have some interaction activity to let you put in some of the keywords, some of the ideas, and to talk about what are the challenges, what are the opportunities as well, what are the tips to be confident, energetic, and happy being a woman in their aging period. All right. So you might have seen these figure quite a few times by now. So we can look at this figure, and you can see that globally we are facing the challenge of population aging, and many countries have shifted and will shift from a higher proportion of younger populations to a higher proportion of older people. And for the United Nations, they define people who are age 60 or above as older people. And I think this is because some of the countries, particularly some of the countries in Africa, mortality, premature mortality, and also infant and young children mortality, as well as paternal mortality, is still a problem. So the worldwide, we define people 60 years or older as older people. But if you look at OECD countries, such as in Australia, our life expectancy on average is about 83 years. So 60, I think really now is the new 45. That's how I think about it. Anyway, so look at this chart, and you can see that progressively by 2100, which is about not that far along from now, about 75 years from now, over 3 billion people would reach age of 60 and over. So there's nothing really to be afraid of being 60 or over, and that's just part of the society systematic problems, such as low fertility rate, but also access to healthy food, healthcare access, and also more stabilized political and economic societies really prolong people's life, and so people live much longer than before. On the right-hand side, you can see the global life expectancy. So just about 30 years ago already, in the 1990s, 1995, the global life expectancy is about 65 years. And you can see that around now we are in between 2010 and 2045. In 2021, according to the United Nations statistics, life expectancy is about 71. So that's still similar to 2010 to 2015. And in 2100, the global life expectancy will be 83 years. And then you can probably imagine more people in that kind of period will live beyond that kind of age. And that brought up a concept of being a centenarian. And as I mentioned earlier, this is refers to people who live 100 years or older. And you can see the trend of being a centenarian has also changed dramatically as it grows, as life expectancy grows. Really in the 1950s, just about 33,000 people who reach this age, and it's so rare in that kind of period. And really just recently, I think just in the past 5 years, I just heard about centenarians more and more, and I even talked to some of them recently. So around this period in 2020 and beyond, we have over 500,000 of people who reach 100 years old. At home in Australia, people also live much longer, and you can see from this is from the AIHW statistics. Life expectancy has dramatically increased by over 13 years for males and over 11 years for females. Although whether just for the average adults or for centenarians, females tend to live longer than males. I will talk about it later when we talk about women in aging. And there are different factors contributing to why women live longer, but there are also other challenges being that as well. So in Australia, we also have seen more centenarians, and here you can look at the stats. Just in the 1960s, one in over 1,200 people died of being a centenarian. In the recent years, actually over 1% of the deaths of the people who died were centenarians. The issue around the life expectancy in Australia is the social disparities. If you look at the figure on your left, and it shows on the horizontal line, you can see the socioeconomic group. 5 is the highest, which means that people at a higher socioeconomic status, with higher income, probably also higher education level. Things like that, and you can see that their mortality rate for both men and women are significantly lower compared to the socioeconomic group, which is the lowest, and you can see indicated with 1 here. If you look at the chart on the right, the gap between non-Aboriginal Australians and Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people, the gap for life expectancy is quite huge, and that's around 10 years. And the goal is to really reduce this gap, and the projection and the aim is to reduce that gap to 0 by 2030. So there are lots of work to work toward this goal. And earlier I talked about healthy aging and healthy longevity. And what does healthy aging particularly mean from the World Health Organization's definition? And that means the process of developing and maintaining functional ability that enables well-being in older age. And that introduced another concept of well-being. So well-being, again, according to the WHO, is about the total universe of human life domains that makes up what can be called a good life. So simply put, you can say well-being is about having a good life. But if we want to make it a little bit more nuanced, well-being is not just about have no disease or no illnesses, but it's a complex combination of a person's physical, mental, emotional, and social health factors. So basically, we're talking about being well physically and mentally, but also emotionally, and also in terms of the social health, such as a lot of human rights to access healthy food, essential medicine, healthcare access, have safety, have clean water, things like that, as a part of the basic human rights. So all of these together are described as how we feel about ourselves and our life, and to feel satisfied. That's well-being. And as I mentioned earlier, we're in the decade living into the UN Decade of Healthy Aging from 2021 to 2030. And the mission of this Decade of Healthy Aging is about healthy aging, not just for older people, but the people related to older adults, such as their families, the communities, and even for some people who continue to work in their workplaces. And there are 4 pillars in the healthy decade of healthy aging framework. So we're going to look at each of them briefly. So the first pillar is combating ageism, and I think ageism continues to be a problem. Although my hope, and I think also in some experience that we can see that ageism is not as severe as other periods of previous years. I don't know how do you guys feel about it? Maybe you can share with me at this moment, since we're some time. So because I think ageism really makes people feel marginalized, right? But at the meantime, I think there are also a lot of advantages being older, age 65 or over, and but there are also persistent biases and discriminations toward people who are older, like even 75, and we can also see the U.S. Current president Joe Biden. In which I think he's definitely a great president who has done a lot of progressive work to change the country in the past 3.5 years. But the attack of his age and some of the age-related speech performance, I think it just really is another huge symptom of ageism. So maybe I can open the floor for about 2 to 3 minutes and see how you feel about ageism, any biases and discriminations that you might have experienced recently, or maybe you feel respect. And I think I come from China originally. In the Asian societies, older people do have more respect, and that's how I feel in the society. And ageism is a problem, for example, in workplaces, but in the communities, I think older people tend to be respected more. So I want to hear what you think. I'm going to stop share and talk about this for a few minutes. Anybody?
Thank you, Joy. I'm probably similar to you. I mean, the advantage that I have too, coming from a collective culture, is that there is that respect for our elders. But it's in the work that I do, with Civil Sirens, what I come across is, we talk about ageism being the last discrimination that's, that's accepted. So it feels like the next area that we have to really, as a community, do something to address. So yeah, that's me. But I can see Charlotte's got her hand up. Charlotte?
Oh, I just wanted to thank, oh, my camera really is off center. There it is. I just wanted to thank Joy for mentioning, about Joe Biden, because I just watched his address to the nation, and he's fine. He's perfectly fine. That all these people were wringing their hands. Please bear in mind that that whole situation is multi-layered, but all of the hand wringing over someone who's obviously still doing his job was fascinating to me. But it also
his job right and help people and help to fight for people's women's especially women's freedom to have.
Oops, sorry, 100%. And it's one of the things that I think my point where I was going with that is that even in his aging state, he's still substantively contributing to society. So the concept of someone aging and not being an active member or participant in their community, just it's anathema to me. It's not something that culturally I've experienced. And I'm excited about the work of Silver Sirens and this discussion to further promulgate that concept and that idea that aging is a stage of life, not the end of it.
Thank you, Shala. Are you joining us in Australia or in the US?
Yeah, I'm in Piermont. Yes, I'm here in Sydney.
Oh, cool. I see. Myself is also American, but also Australian as well.
Well, we shall chat.
Anybody who wants to join a discussion about the experience of combating ageism, or
I'm gonna. Oh, good. Jodie's gonna go. Yeah, go, Jodie.
I took part in a 9-day training session last week. Now, Faith is already aware of this. Now, most of the people in the class were quite young, in their 30s. And now this is what I was doing was a neurolinguistic master's course. And the trainer, who is actually older than me, said to me, in front of the whole class, she looked at me and she said, well, I can't imagine you'd be very computer savvy.
Yeah.
And she said, oh, the young ones are all they know how to do all this stuff on computer, but, you wouldn't. And I thought, where does that come from?
Yeah, that seems like a symptom of ageism, and just assume
Yes.
you're older and you're not computer or technology savvy.
As I said, I would have expected it from the younger ones, but as an older lady herself, I found it quite shocking.
Interesting. Anyone else? For me, I love to talk to older people. I just love it. And I just feel like they're so knowledgeable and, so experienced, and they're so generous, and in many cases. So I really, I honestly, I love hanging out with older people and, do different kinds of stuff, whether at work, or leisurely. And I think, we can, learn so much wisdom from them. All right, shall I continue if people still want to listen to what I'm going to talk about next? So the second pillar from the UN Decade of Healthy Aging is about building an age-friendly environment that really is to ensure that the communities foster the abilities of older people, but really to have a harmonious environment to make sure everybody, keep their well-being, as mentioned earlier, and foster autonomy, their dignity, well-being, as mentioned earlier, of older people and their family carers. And you can see on this picture, it's like an environment not just for older people, but it's for everybody. You can see their school, hospital, and shops there. And I think that's in some nature, and we'll talk about nature in a little bit, lots of trees, mountains, in this picture. And, that kind of environment is just so crucial to build this kind of age-friendly environment. In Cherrybrook, where I live, and actually I live in the hills, and although Australia, we don't really have like a blue zones type, that kind of blue zones with concentrated centenarians, but from what I read, the hills is one of the blue zones in Australia, with quite a much higher a life expectancy on average than the average Australians. And I can see that why. And we have a very friendly community with people from all generations, from babies all the way to older people. Everybody get along with each other very well. We have a community, and many communities, community centers or exercise groups, but just the environment with not lots of nature, but lots of essential shops and healthcare centers, the pharmacies, and that kind of facilities really help and foster these kind of age-friendly environments. And I hope, more and more we can see that in Australia. And the third pillar is about integrated care. Integrated care is so important, especially for older people. When we get older, we have different sorts of chronic conditions, right? You can see on this picture on the right, we may have some heart problem, some neurological health issues, mobility may be limited. We may lose muscle and become frail, vision problem and hearing problems, and also start to be increasingly a problem for older people. And how do we really get our healthcare system together, not just rely on primary health services, but really, rely, getting all clinical specialties together when we treat and manage multiple conditions, which is called multimorbidity for older people, is very important. And with that, part of my idea and my advocacy is to change lifestyles if we can, because lifestyles do not rely on medications. It's a non-pharmacological option to help us to reduce the severity of these different conditions. And when we talk about centenarians in my study as a case study, I will talk about more around the different lifestyle factors and medications around integrated care. And the fourth pillar is also very important to ensure access to long-term care for the needed. For some people, they do need to use long-term care, and that way they would get a better care from health professionals rather than just rely on families. And when we have to rely on families, and we often seen that is an unsustainable and inequitable solution, particularly the responsibility gets on the shoulder of many women, because we traditionally are carers, for our children, for our parents, for the elderly relatives, and also women tend to live longer with longer life expectancy. So rely on on women and families are not a sustainable idea. And of course, that has to go back to the funding models and go back to health policy of the government to provide funding sources to ensure people who are needed to get access to long-term care. So these are the 4 pillars, and I'm gonna play this short video for you to kind of get a little bit better absorption of what I just talked about, and I hope this video will work. So I'm gonna play it now.
In 2020, the number of people aged 60 and above rose to over 1 billion. That's almost 15% of the world's population. Each one an older person who wishes to live a long and healthy life. This means being able to meet everyday basic needs for food, shelter, and clothing. Stay mobile and get where they want and need to go. It means being able to build and maintain relationships, as well as continue to learn and make decisions. And it's also about being able to contribute to family and communities. This is healthy aging. It requires that our mental and physical capacities are maintained and supported by our environment. So even if our capacities decline, we can still do what we value. We can all contribute to adapting and strengthening these environments, working together to build up evidence, learning from countries, existing programs, and of course, from older people themselves. If we measure, understand, and act together, we can make sure everyone has the same opportunity for healthy aging wherever they may be. This is the vision of the decade of healthy aging. The baseline report for the decade gives us a snapshot of where we are in 2020 and where we aim to be by 2030. We must work together and act now in order to reach all older people.
All right. All right. So that's another thing that I forgot to mention. When we get older, what are some of the advantages being older? We have more time. There are more opportunities. We can learn. We can read. We can, hopefully have a social life and get connected with more other people. I think like Silver Sirens sounds like a great community that get people together to learn a lot. And I know Faith has organized many talks and master classes, and that's really a blessing for the community. So another thing that I'm really passionate about is about food. I believe food is a medicine, or maybe not, purely, a type of medicine, more like a preventive medicine. But this goes back to my Chinese culture, and growing up, we treat food not just as a source of energy, calorie, to sustain our movement, our work, our school and other activities, but we treat food as a type of remedies, right? We have herbal medicine, but we also look at food as like different elements, such as here in Chinese is a 5 taste. We look at the hot, the cold, calm, and different kind of elements to make it like harmonize our body, because sometimes our body feels like hot, and that's actually in the scientific kind of terminology would be inflammatory. And how do we calm that inflammation? We use some kind of cold food to kind of balance it, to make our body feel more harmonized. But food as medicine also goes back to the Hippocrates, right? Back to 400 before the Common Era, and that's really a long time ago. And that's what they talked about, looked at food as a medicine, and medicine should be our food. So based on that, and that's my ideology, I can say that treating food as part of the preventive medicine for life. That introduced another quite a recent concept around sustainable diet, and that's it's due to the resources are getting more limited, especially the natural resources, and with continuing going of population, how do we make sure climate change does not destroy our earth, and we can continue to live healthily and in a sustainable way on the earth. And for sustainable diet, a lot of us, when we talk about this concept, it's really about lowering the environmental impacts, about how food contribute, how nutrition contribute to the planet. But for sustainable diet, it goes beyond the environmental impacts. It also talks about the nutrition of food security, and how does that play a role in our healthy life, not just now, but also for the future generations. Another very important aspect of sustainable diet is about the protective and respective biodiversity and ecosystem. as well as being culturally acceptable, and have the food, the healthy food accessible and not too expensive so everybody can afford it. So that's other dynamics of the sustainable diet that I want to talk about here. And this is particularly important because we have many migrants in this country, Australia. Basically, we have over half of the population either born or are children of migrants in this country. And how do we ensure having sustainable diet that are culturally acceptable and economically fair and affordable, as well as to meet the nutritional adequacy and needs to make sure everybody's healthy. And that's a long effort and big effort to continue to put in to make that happen. And for sustainable diets, I am going to talk about the impact on chronic disease prevention, and that's from part of my research in the early years. So I'm not going to go into too much depth on its impact on environment, and I think you probably have heard about how to eat well, and not just eat well, but also be conscious around where to buy your food, how to make sure food packaging is less, and recycle food packaging if you have to buy, food packaged food, to reduce the footprint in the environment. The other aspect that I think is also very important to touch on is how to link food with social interaction, and I have several slides to talk about it. And I think that's really one thing and one activity using food to connect everybody together, and we can do so many more, just more than just eating, to have these kind of social eating interactions together. So for the impact on environment, as I mentioned earlier, you can probably already know about eating plant-based foods such as legumes, nuts. They reduce water consumption, carbohydrate, the CO2, sorry, I forgot how to say the carbon dioxide absorption, and also climate adaptability. Regarding on social interaction, I think that's one fascinating thing to think about around food. When we eat alone, we tend to eat less healthier. We tend to eat a lot of junk food. We also feel very lonely. When we are alone, we don't, tend to cook more. We don't tend to, go to the grocery to buy something to cook a healthy meal for ourselves. And I think that's just some quite common phenomenons, and when we have to eat by ourselves. On the other hand, when we eat junk food, we tend to overeat, and that contributes to overweight and even obesity. And that's not something that we want to, have that kind of impact on our body either. And the other part is that when we eat alone, we tend to eat something very simple. The varieties will be low. And I will talk about how important eating with diverse diets contributing to healthy aging and healthy longevity later. And my earlier research has looked at the roles of diet and nutrition in osteoporosis and knee osteoarthritis in different ethnic populations. So first of all, let's review a little bit or talk about osteoporosis and hip fracture. I don't know how many of you may have experienced osteoporosis, and you can see that on the right-hand side with this figure, when we get older, especially post-menopause, because of the dramatic decline of estrogen, which contributes a really great deal to our bone strength. After post-menopause, and women will experience osteoporosis quite often. And when that continue, and it's actually very, very hard to detect unless you do bone screening to check, whether you have osteoporosis. And many women, they did not detect osteoporosis until they got fracture. And hip fracture is a very serious osteoporosis problem, and a lot of women may experience disability and even mortality, because when your bone gets loose, and it's very, very easy to fall, and with the environment, and also with nutrition and also hormonal changes, when women fall, the likelihood to fracture your bones, and if it's on the hips, and it's really severe. And this chart just shows that women compared to men have a different mechanism that develop osteoporosis, and women tend to have bone loss much earlier than men, and that's around after menopause, and that contributes, the hip fracture prevalence is also much higher in women. With 1 in 3 women over 50 will experience hip fracture. The other common musculoskeletal problem is osteoarthritis, and particularly on the knees. That's when we have the tear and wear of the joints, where the cartilage get thinner, the bones touch each other, and that starts to feeling pain on the joints, and that affects mobility and even disability and physical functions. Compared to men, unfortunately, women also tend to have osteoporosis more common than men. And some of the dietary impacts of how diet and food contributing to higher risk of osteoarthritis can be found here. If someone eats a diet with a lot of processed food, high in sugar, high in fat, such as a lot of red meat, a lot of junk food and refined grains, that kind of sweet food and snacks, and low in fiber, and that's tend to be lower in whole grain intake, vegetable fruit intake, nuts and legumes, that contribute quite a large proportion to osteoarthritis. And I will show you some of my research in the next few slides.
Sorry, Joy, we've just got a few more minutes remaining.
Okay. When should I stop?
So we finish at 12, so maybe a few minutes before, so we can just wrap up and get any last minute questions.
Oh, sure. I have some activities, and this will go through quite quickly. So just bear with me. So this is a large Singapore Chinese health study when we looked at around 63,000 people and followed these people up for 10 years. And some of the important knowledge that we learn is about dietary patterns. And we found that when men or women, they consume a high plant-based diet, particularly on soy products, tofu, soy milk, and fruit and vegetables. They have a much lower risk to develop hip fracture. And you can see that for women, about 30% of lower risk if people tend to consume a vegetable, fruit, soy kind of diet. When we looked at people tended to eat more meat and dim sum, that kind of high meat, high protein diet, although we did not see any association in relation to hip fractures, but we saw a trend that if women tend to eat more of this kind of food, the risk to develop hip fractures can be over 20%, although the statistically it's not significant. In terms of knee osteoarthritis, what I found is that people, if they consume high fiber food, as I mentioned earlier, like whole grains and nuts, legumes, fruits, and vegetables, that kind of food, that can also reduce knee osteoarthritis significantly. And you can look at here, statistically, it's quite significant, and you can see that less than 30%, over 30% of the risk be reduced to reduce the risk of having incident knee osteoarthritis as well as pain. And we found that in another cohort as well. And so that's quite a piece of convincing evidence that eating more high fiber food will have a lower risk to develop knee osteoarthritis. And part of the mechanism is really around inflammation and control body weight, and that explains how dietary fiber may reduce knee symptomatic OA. And another mechanism is around your gut microbe. You probably have heard about the gut microbes recently in the recent years, and what you eat contributes to your whole gut microbiome environment. And fiber is one of the really important dietary components to contribute to more friendly microbiomes, which is very good to reduce the inflammation and other problems such as metabolic activities, including obesity and cardiometabolic biomarkers. And there are several of the pieces of the readings if you want to read about how plant-based food contributes to lower risk of knee osteoarthritis, and you can take a look at this article that published earlier. And the other one talk about in general how nutrition contributes to osteoarthritis, looking into different dietary patterns as well as nutrients and food groups as well. So something that from the healthy lifestyle and longevity that I looked at earlier, and a lot of lessons that we can learn from these 34 studies around over 10,000 centenarians around the world. And you can see that again, women tend to be at a high proportion to be centenarians, which we should be happy about. But then some of the highlights that I really want to talk about is your living environment. If you live in the nature with walkability, and you can relax and socialize with your family or friends, that seems to be contribute to longevity. Another thing is about sleep. I think sleep satisfaction is also very, very important. And some of the evidence showing sleep around 7 to 8 hours tend to be more beneficial to healthy aging and manage different disease and prevention. Other part around diet, the recommendation from these piece of work is focusing on 60% of carbohydrates, particularly from whole grains, around 20% from protein and 30% from fats, although there's a range from there. But the main idea is eating a diet with a lot of diversities, with a lot of whole grains, as well as, nuts, legumes, fruits, vegetables, and meat as well. But the meat, you probably want to avoid a lot of processed meat or red meat and focus on poultry and fish, that kind of protein. Another important concept and findings about medications. I don't know how many medications you currently taking. So just pay attention to polypharmacy, which is taking more than 5 medications at the same time. Around diet, I forgot one important thing is also monitor your sodium level when you eat the food or your diets. And the current recommendation from the WHO is around 2 grams per day in sodium. So high sodium level contributes to hypertension, cardiovascular diseases, and even chronic kidney damage. So salt intake is another important thing to watch out. So I'm not going to go through all of these, and maybe if you are still around, I hope you're still around, you can help me. Okay, this doesn't really help me to do that. What I'm actually trying to have the floor open is to talk about what do you think about the challenges but also opportunities as women in the aging world. And another concept is about what do you think we can do to feel more confident and energetic? And that's pretty much about today's presentation and the class. And some of the very inspiring news is like recently you probably have heard about the 71-year-old woman in Texas who is the contestant for Miss USA. And look at her and this beautiful picture. But also we have marathon runners in Australia, and this is a lady 80-year-old and above, and this is the 92-year-old that make the Guinness World, and I believe she's from France, and also the 76-year-old who was in London just also finished a marathon and make a record. I'm gonna stop sharing, but if you want to email me, definitely you can. And perhaps I can open the floor now and to kind of hear your ideas around opportunities and challenges of being a woman in the aging world, as well as what do you think we can do to make ourselves feel more confident, more energetic, and also very important is like make ourselves happier.
So I'm super conscious of the time. Literally, we have 3.5 minutes. It's not a huge amount of time for interactive. But I just wanted to say, thank you. And also the things that we can do, the things that, have an impact on our aging, a large amount of them are things that we have control over. There's a lot of things we don't, but it is inspiring to know that we could change. There are things that we can change. And I loved hearing that nature played a big part. And for me personally, I want to reach out to you separately, Dr. Joy, because I've got to have a knee replacement, and I know you've done a lot of work on hip and knee. So I'll reach out to you, just not to take up all the time. But anyone else who would like to, anyone want to say anything or answer Dr. Joy's question around feeling what we do to feel confident as we age?
Anybody?
Yeah, go, Zhaolo.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you. I thought this was a great discussion this morning. As someone who exists with a lot of fear around aging and the aging process, this is, it helps knowing that I have some control, makes me feel a little bit better.
That's great. I think we have full control.
That just makes me even happier because I'm a control freak.
That sounds great. Jody, you want to say something?
Yeah, and Peggy wanted to say something too. Why don't we go to Peggy first because she hasn't spoken, and then we'll come back to Jody.
That's good. Hi, Peggy. You're on mute.
You're still muted, darling. It's funny how it does that. Oh,
Is it on?
yeah, we can hear you now. Now we
Okay,
can hear and see
sorry.
you.
Thanks so much for the session. I really enjoyed it. I just wanted to say that staying in the community as much as you possibly can, and in the civil science community is what I'm talking about, and as just staying connected with family and friends as best you can. I think is what satisfies those things for me.
Yeah.
That sounds great. How often do you see each other? And I think, being together online is, an alternative when we cannot see each other. But I think that there's still a huge difference that you interact online than, interact in person. So you can see each other, you can see each other's faces and talk to each other, and that kind of like personal interaction is quite precious.
Yeah, we have a monthly civil science lunch, and we have them, we're starting to develop them around the country because of that need for the actual physical. It's great to be online, obviously it's convenient, but that physical connection too is really important. So it's something that we've started, initiative that we've developed this year. And we have one in Sydney on Saturday.
Oh, nice.
Yay.
Awesome.
Cool. So Jody, let's come to you to finish off. You okay? And I know, Lynn, you had to go off, so I'm assuming that maybe you've gone, Lynn. I can't see your face anymore.
No.
Yeah, great. Thank you. That was great. It was lovely to hear that we have a blue zone where you live. I didn't know we had a blue zone in Sydney. I was like, whoa, I better move there.
But it's not really a well-known blue zone, but
Yeah.
it's considered a blue zone just because they have seen higher proportion of people who, reached in their 90s and things like that.
Amazing. What area was that again?
I'm in Cherrybrook.
Cherrybrook. And that's because of nature. There's a lot of nature and there's generational families, etc. Is that the key?
Yeah, and also quite safe and
Mm.
lots of nature and easy to shop, easy to, connect, and lots of schools here too.
Accessibility.
And happy and healthy in general.
Yeah, thank you. See you, Peggy. Great. And I was just kind of going, oh, the things that we're supposed to eat less of are the things that I love, like talk about salt and meats. And I was like, I do all the healthy thing too, because I'm so aware of them. But all the things I love, wow, they're all in the do not or limit list, which is always so typical.
Yeah, sometimes there's also a balance, and there's something I also want to think about and how to explore that better. And I think when we connect and do social interaction, we bring our food, and I think that's just the beauty of potluck, that people can bring food from different cultures.
Yes.
On the other hand, that you can really make sure everything is like so 100% healthy, but there's this like trade-off, whether you want to get together so you can eat and try different food and be with each other to so you don't feel lonely and you feel like part of the community, or you have to get everything so perfectly healthy. And that may also make some people less discouraged to join these kind of so there's a trade-off, and there's some way. And I think I personally would think the social connections will play a larger role than just making sure everything is like so perfectly healthy. But I think we can all try.
Well, interesting enough, our newsletter that's going out today, I'm going to wrap up soon because I'm work time, but our newsletter that goes out today is all about the tend and befriend elements that women have that contributes to women living longer. That's what you're talking about, the social connection. And in times of crisis, our women will come together and support each other, you know. And we're finding that in our monthly lunches, just the coming together. And, you know, the element of food is great. You know, in the Sydney one, we have it in a women's house. We take turns to host, and we do bring food in. And even just the element of us discussing what everyone's going to bring, you can feel the excitement. Something gets released in the body, some happy hormone, just talking about what we're going to bring, you know. It's on Saturday, and already the conversation's bringing so much joy because I've decided I'm going to make a chicken risotto, and even just thinking about that makes me happy. You know? So all of that contributes to longer living. So we love that. Simple things. I love that it's simple things.
All right, cool.
Yeah, beautiful. So look, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it. And we'll send you the recording as well. Okay, and you're welcome to share it. So thank you all for those that joined Dr. Joy and I live, and those that are watching the replay. We really appreciate you. And any questions for Dr. Joy, I will add Dr. Joy's email address to the replay. Okay,
All right,
so everyone have a wonderful day. And again, thank you so much again.
Thanks. Bye.